Okay, so go ahead to CA35 and try 2 and 3. And again, pause, come back, think about them on your own, and then I'll go through them together. All right, so let's look at this one. Jean has a casserole recipe that calls for half a cup of butter. All right, so her recipe calls for half a cup of butter. So pretend this part's not there, but so the recipe calls for a half a cup of butter, but she only has a third of a cup of butter. So again, a third would be about right there. And again, these are what she doesn't have. And again, that should probably be about there. So she, the recipe requires a half, but she only has a third. All right. And so it says, assume she has enough of the other ingredients, what fraction of the recipe? So she doesn't have enough butter to make the whole recipe. So we want to know what fraction of the recipe she can. And we have two different units here. So we're going to get a common denominator of 6s. So 1/2 scale and scale. That's going to be 3 6s. And a third is going to be 2 6s. And so what's going on here is I'm going to cut this guy in thirds and thirds. So I can see that now I have, and again, this is what's shaded. All right, so now what used to be a half, all of this, you can now see is also, so it's a half, but it's also 3 6s. So this is 1/6, 1/6, and 1/6, okay? And then underneath, I have my 1/3, which is going to become 2 6s, right? So, and so I have that, and again, this is what I have here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut all of those. All right, and so I can see right here my, what used to be my, what was it, my 1/3, you can now see is 2 shaded in out of 6. So this is 1/6, 1/6. Okay, and again, I try to draw them to scale so you can see that kind of those line up a little bit. All right, and so the question is, make a math drawing to help you solve the problem. Explain why your answer is correct. On your explanation, attend carefully to the units that the fraction is of. So here, this is half of your whole stick of butter. This original was a third of your whole, let's see, nope, sorry. This is half, I gotta get back. This is half of a cup, okay? And again, this is a third of a cup. And now I want to know what fraction of a recipe I can make. So this is referring to half the butter, half a cup of butter, a third a cup of butter. And I want to know what fraction I can make. And again, I can't make all of it. I don't have enough. So now I'm going to focus on this half. This strip right here is going to be the recipe. So now when I pay attention to that, I am paying attention not to the fact that it's half a cup of butter, but that this is my whole now. So this much butter makes one whole recipe. So if this is my whole, now what fraction do I have of this whole, right? And so if you look, I have this much of what I need. And so I have 2 pieces out of the 3 needed. So I have 2/3 of a recipe. So I have 2/3, I can make 2/3 of the recipe. Now, I don't know why I put an L in there, but whatever. Okay, so again, I drew my half and I drew my third to scale. I got a common denominator of 6s. So your half is 3 6s, and you can see them 1, 2, 3, and there would be 6 total in the whole. And then I have a third, which is 2 6s, and that lines up right there, and then my whole. And so I want to know what fraction of a recipe I can make. Well, the recipe is that much. That's my new whole. That's my new 100%. And I have 2 pieces of that I would need to make it. So I have 2/3 of a recipe. All right, go ahead and read the sugar bomb one. right there, number 3. And again, try to draw a picture and then try to see if you can figure out the answer. And then we'll talk about this one as well. Okay, so let's look at number 3. It says 1 serving of sugar bombs is 3/4 of a cup. Okay, so we have 3/4 of a cup. So this is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. This is my 3/4 of a cup. And again, I'm going to put the rest of it that's not there. So a cup is my whole, and I have 3/4 of it, right? And that 3/4 of a cup is what? It is, let's see, a serving. So all of this is equal to 1 serving. Okay, so that is 1 serving. So this is 3/4 of a cup, but this is 1 serving. If I have this much, I know I'm eating a serving. All right, so it says Joey wants to eat half of a serving. Okay, so Joey wants to eat half of a serving of Sugar Bomb cereal. Now, I could cut these all in half and then take half of them, but it's probably easier when you want to take half of something is to cut it the opposite direction, because then you can see it better. So Joey wants to eat half of a serving. So again, here's my serving. There's my whole this time. He wants to eat half of it. So he only wants to eat half of the serving. And then we're going back to our whole again. The question is, explain, let's see, how many cups of cereal? So now we're going back to the whole cup, which now it's cut into 8s. Do you see that? This is an 1/8, an 1/8, an 1/8, and then these guys down here now are all also 8s, 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 everything's an 8. So he should eat 3/8 of a cup of cereal if he wants to eat half a serving. So again, in the front one, on the first one, butter was your whole to begin with, and you had half a cup. Your butter that you had, again, a cup was your whole, you had 1/3 of the full cup of butter. But then your whole switched to the recipe. And so it was, you wanted to make a whole recipe, but you couldn't. You only had 2 pieces of the 3 needed to make the whole. So then you can make 2/3 of the recipe. In this one, we had a whole cup to begin with, and we had 3/4. So there was my 3/4 going this way of a whole cup. But then we focused on the fact that now our whole was that 3/4 of a cup equaled 1 whole serving. And he wanted to eat half of it, so we cut it in half. So now my new units are cut into 8s. And so when I go back again to look at my whole being the whole cup, then I have 3/8, and that would be what he is eating there. All right, why don't you pause it and go ahead and flip the page to CA 36, 3, 4, and 5. Try those, and then I'll come back and talk about those. So pause, try 3, 4, and 5 on the next page, CA 36, and then we'll come back and chat about those. So in this first one, we need to get a common denominator, and it looks like I can multiply by 3 and 3 and get 9/24. It's a 4. And if I get a common denominator here, I'm going to multiply by 4 and 4 and get what? 4/24. And so there's a couple ways that you could plot this on this graph. One is, if this is 4/24, you could measure it off again. So there's 4/24, there's another 4. So that would be 8/24. And then you need to go 1/24 more. So if this is 4, I need 3 cuts, 1, 2, 3, to make 4 things. So 1, 2, 3. So this is 1/24, 2/24, 3/24, and then 4/24. So then I could just measure one of those little tick marks and go just beyond there. But again, it has to be the same distance to be scaled. And this would be 9/24, which is the same as 3/8. And again, make sure you plot a point and label it. The other thing is you could cut this into your 3 cuts to make 4 things, and then cut this in. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Then you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9/24 and get it that way as well. All right, let's look at the last 2. Number 4, it says she has ran 1/4 of a mile, but that's only 2/3 of what she wants to run. All right, so she wants to run. Our goal is to get up to a whole run, not a whole mile. So we want to get this guy up to 1. So what I'm going to do is, this is my unit fraction. So 2/3 is 2 sets of a third. So I'm going to get a third on my number line and then again measure so it's kind of to scale. And then this is going to be 3/3, which is her whole run. So what I have to do is I have to kind of figure out like, okay, well then what's this? So it's kind of like a double number line, we call this. 0 still here, so this is 0 of a mile. So I got to figure out what's here. Well, 1/4 of a mile, if I take half of it, which is, okay, this is halfway in between, that is 1/8 of a mile. So this is going to be 1/8 of a mile, 2/8 of a mile, which reduces, and so this would be what, 3/8 of a mile? And again, this is called a double number line because I'm focusing on run on top and miles on bottom. So 3/8 of a mile. All right, and then the last one says that Tyler ran 2/3 of a mile, but that's only 3/4 of his run. And again, we don't want to know like anything about the miles. We want to know when he gets his full run. So again, remember this is 3 sets of 1/4. I want to build up to a whole run. So I need to do my unit fraction. So I have 3 sets. So again, 2 cuts, 1, 2. So this would be what, 1/4 of his run, 2/4 of his runs, 3/4. And again, I need to measure that over and get, again, 4/4 of his run, or that's his whole run. And the nice thing about a double number line is now it tells me what math to do down here. I need to get up to a whole run. This is where I want to be. I want to know how many miles his whole run is. So look at what we did. What did we do to 2/3? We cut it into what? 1, 2, 3 equal pieces. So I have 3 equal pieces. So I am going to take 2/3 and take 1/3 of it and see what happens here. So I get 2/9. All right, because each third would be worth 2/9. So let's see what that does. 2/9, 4/9, 6/9. And if I divide by 3, I get that. And then so 6/9 and then 8/9 miles. And so then I should be like, you know, it should match up. So if my unit fractions are 2/9, I can count by them. 2/9, 4/9, 6/9, and then 8/9. And then I could do that. Now, another option to try to do is, you know, you could try to get a common denominator, but you don't really need to. You just need to kind of pay attention on what your base unit is and what you're trying to build up to. So let me make up another one here. Like if I have, here's 0, and say that they did, I don't know, say they did 5/6 of a run, and say, I have no idea, say that's, oh my gosh, Julie, let's say that's half a mile. All right, so I want to build up to a whole run. So 5 iterations of a 6, so I need 4 cuts, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and so this would be 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6. And again, my goal is to get up to a whole run, which is 6/6 of a run or a whole run. They made it to the run. All right, now, down here we're going to have different units, but my half was right here. These two were together. So whatever math I did up here, like in cutting, I'm going to do the same thing here. So I cut the 5/6 into what? How many equal pieces, right? So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal pieces. So I have to cut my half into fifths because, again, it's kind of like I'm dividing it by 5 pieces, and when you multiply fractions, you do the reciprocal. So I get 1/10. I'm cutting these into fifths of the half. I'm taking a fifth of a half. All right, so that should be 1/10, and you can see if it works. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. If 5/10 does not reduce to a half, then I know I did it wrong. And then right here, I would have 6/10 of a mile, which reduces, or sorry, simplifies to 3/5 miles. So his or her whole run is 3/5 of a mile. And we'll use double number lines a lot to kind of, for division problems, especially when we get to dividing fractions. So again, I know they're a little tricky, but again, the idea is that you have two different wholes. You have a whole run and you have a whole mile. All right, so we're going to stop there.